Welcome to Let's Talk with Tara, the space where real life meets real answers. I am Dr. Tara T. Stallings, counselor and coach, here to help you navigate life's toughest challenges. Together, we'll explore psychological insights, emotional healing, relational growth, and biblical truths to empower your journey. So grab a seat, lean in, and let's have the conversations that matter the most. Welcome. Today, we're talking about the root of anxiety and how to address it. So, what if anxiety isn't about stress, but about something deeper that your heart is trying to say? Welcome today. I am so excited to be on today. So listen, like, share. This message is life-changing. So there is a song, I'm not going to name the artist, but it has a catchy beat. And I hear so many people saying and singing this song. And even before the artist created this song, anxiety, my anxiety, the song talks about my anxiety, somebody's watching me. I know you guys know this song, but there's a danger even in singing, repeating the words of the song, because it causes anxiety to become a part of your identity. And anxiety is far from your identity. Anxiety is a signal, not your identity. I'm going to say that again. Anxiety is a signal. It's not who you are. It's not something that you should own, that you should possess, that should be a part of you. It's only a signal. Anxiety is not who you are. It's an alarm system. It's an alarm system. It reveals internal fears, control issues, or trauma, not always an external threat, but it's something internal. It's internal fears. So many people, especially in our society now, have made anxiety a part of their identity. And it is not. It is an alarm system. That's all it is. It's a signal that something is off, not a part of who you are. For example, if you're constantly anxious about money, the root may be childhood insecurity, not your actual income. I'm taking my time here. So if we're talking about anxiety being a signal and not identity, if you're always anxious about money, the root of anxiety for you may be some insecurities from your childhood regarding finances and not your actual income. Think about that for a moment. And most people that have anxiety regarding money is because they had lack insecurity when they were growing up. And their internal fear, is that they don't want to go back to that. So they're always on edge or anxious about finances. What if I don't have enough? I don't want to go back in poverty. And their anxiety is always elevated because of childhood insecurities, not their income. Because most of the time, what they're anxious about, their need is met. It may not be met to the fullest, but they're not hungry. They're homeless. So let's think about this. So if that's something that you deal with, then you have to ask yourself, what are you afraid of and why? What are you afraid of and why? What are you afraid of and why? because anxiety is a signal, not an identity. Now let's talk about the spiritual side of anxiety. Spiritual roots of anxiety. Anxiety often comes from trying to control what only God can. Anxiety comes from trying to control what only God can control. You're trying to play God. Most people that deal with anxiety trying to control, manipulate the situation. They're trying to control what only God has control of, or control someone else, control the narrative. You can't control anything except yourself. That's the only thing. And half the time, you can't control that. that unless you have learned self-control and discipline. Philippians 4:6-7 says, be anxious for nothing. It doesn't say be anxious for your family, be anxious for a few things. It says be anxious for nothing. But in everything by prayer and supplication. And in the society that we live in now, people are anxious about everything. They're anxious even about prayer, because then they're trying to control the prayer, control the narrative of the prayer. So a daily practice is just to cast your cares through prayer and meditation. If you're a spirit, and that means sometimes you have to get a book, and I'm gonna throw my insert in. I have a book coming out dealing with emotional issues, dealing with some of these emotional issues. Daily casting your cares through morning prayer, journaling, and meditation. So when we hear cast your cares, that means how do you cast your cares? You're going to pray, you're going to journal, and you're going to meditate on scriptures that of God's provision, protection, and timing. That's how you cast your cares when we talk about anxiety from a spiritual perspective. Because people think, well, God's going to work it out. That's not casting your cares. You have to do something. When we talk about anxiety, anxiety affects your nervous system. You get chest pains, you get racing heart rate, shallow breathing, sweats. Chronic anxiety can lead to exhaustion, irritability, burnout, and even cardiovascular problems. Chronic anxiety. Chronic anxiety, I share with my clients, it can look like if you have your car engine on, the car's in park, but you constantly are pressing on the gas. So you think about you got your car, the engine is on, the car's in park, but you are constantly pressing on the gas. But you're not going anywhere. You're not getting any results. That's how anxiety affects your body, your brain. And what happens if you keep your foot on the gas long enough, the car's gonna overheat. You're gonna run out of gas. You're gonna run out of gas. And eventually, what's going to happen is your body's gonna tear down. And once you tear down, guess what? Once your body breaks down, your cardiovascular system becomes off, your limbic system becomes off, every system in your body becomes irregulated, and it causes so many other issues. So when it comes for that body brain connection, what you can do until you can learn how to navigate emotionally through anxiety with your anxiety is, start breathing, do breathing techniques. do breathing techniques, do grounding techniques. I don't want to go too much in that today, but I'll come back and talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to stay on this podcast too long today. I want to shorten them up a little bit. So I want you to even research some points, some things that you can do as it relates to deregulating your emotions as it relates to having increased anxiety. So I want to share with you one additional point as we talk about anxiety being a signal and not a part of your identity. My last additional point is healing the root, because we talked about the root of anxiety. There's a root of anxiety. Healing the root and not just the fruit. You guys have heard me in my book, Let's Talk. I talk about there's a root and there's a fruit, and most of the time we're looking at the fruit and we're not looking at the root. In the book Let's Talk, Breaking Unwanted Cycles, we talk about that. I share with that. So when we talk about healing healing the root and not just the fruit, and most of the time we want to, and the fruit, we look at the behaviors and we scrutinize the behaviors, but we never look at what caused the behaviors. So healing the root and not the fruit. So temporary coping isn't just enough. Yes, you need to learn how to cope, but if it's temporary, it's just addressing the fruit. You need to look at the root cause and address the root cause. Healing anxiety requires addressing root trauma, fear, or your belief systems. So when you look at the root cause, it's the trauma, the root causes, it's the trauma, the fears, and your belief systems. Because what you believe, right, wrong, or indifferent, is how you're going to navigate. If you believe it is, it is. If you believe it's not, because it's your belief system. And if your belief system is flawed, the answer is going to be flawed. Let me say that. If the belief system is flawed, then the answer is going to be flawed. So what can you do when you talk about addressing the root cause of anxiety? Sometimes you need therapy. Sometimes you need therapy so that you can have someone to help you navigate and identify the root cause of it. Don't just identify, but then once you identify it, then you step into inner healing. You have to heal from that, what you identified that caused that system to be off. You need accountability. Because what we do is then we find a root cause, and then most people, they want to blame, oh, I'm acting this way because of this happened. Well, it was the beginning of it. It was an effect of it, but it's not the cause. Now you're choosing to stay here. Because if you know what happened and it's not working for you, the next step is to heal from that hurt, so that you don't continue to hurt anymore, or you don't continue to behave or display behaviors related to that past hurt. You cannot live in the past because you can't stop what happened in the past. Most people want to stay, they choose to stay in the past, or they have a temporary coping mechanism that's not helping. It's not helping, it's temporary. And then when the trauma, the thoughts, or the fear show up again, it's back. But if you heal from it, then you don't have to keep repeating the emotional damage, the emotional cycle, the emotional conundrum that you find yourself in that increases your anxiety. That increases your anxiety. You are not bound by your past or your patterns, whether it's your thoughts, your wounds, or your relationships. Cycles can be broken and new legacies built. Healing starts with truth, strategy, and surrender. Join me next week. Let's talk with Tara. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk with Tara. If you found today's conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Let's keep this dialogue going. Follow me on Let's Talk Tara for more insights and encouragement. Remember, every step forward starts with an honest conversation. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and keep talking.